And so we have a quorum, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. And I've already got this all printed out. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open space meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order, imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Hubbardston Open Space Committee will be conducted by a remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via Zoom. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website a comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. With that done, I will call the meeting to order. And let's start with our secretary's report.
Oh, I thought we were going to do the minutes.
Minutes, that's the same. Well, the minutes, there you go. Thanks, Susan.
That's him. That's you.
Atta girl, Susan. So Rick has sent around the minutes as usual. Any comments on the minutes?
I forgot one correction, and I made that and sent out a second copy with that correction. Tim Cookeen's spelling of his last name.
Atta boy, Mark. Any other comments?
Nice minutes.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second it. Susan.
All in favor? Let's see. Let's do it this way. Anybody oppose? Hearing none, I'll consider the minutes accepted. All right, let's move down. Treasurer's report. Susan.
All righty. As most of us are aware, open space is associated with 3 different accounts. The last in the open space donation expense account, the previous balance was $477. The current balance is $248.34. In the rider account, which is exclusively for Mount Jeff, the previous balance was $5,691.32. The current is $5,691.32. That sounds identical. It's because it is. More on that in a minute. I'm getting this information from the posted ledger, and it was updated most recently 10/31/20. During this time, since our last meeting, we did have 3 expenditures. We had the Malone sign for $36, the Malone CR for $105, the Mount Jeff sign for $87. Mark was reimbursed for the signs, and Jassy Bratko for the registration. Mark, you did get the check or checks?
Yes, I think so.
Were there 2, or just did she combine it in one? Do you know, or do you know?
Just one.
Yeah, that's part of it. Not your problem, but my problem. So there were 3 requests, and I made it very clear on the reimbursement form that I wanted the loan sign and the CR from the open space donation account, and I wanted the Mount Jeff sign from the rider account. She didn't do that, so the numbers as far as the records are a little bit off, but I'm currently working on it.
The check that I got is $123.66.
That would be the total of 36 and 87, correct? The 2 signs. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm assuming Jassy got hers too. So the bottom line is I need to work it out with Kelly because she didn't take it out of the right accounts. She took everything out of the open space account and nothing out of rider. So we could let it slide, but it's not right because that was our intention was to, should I go ahead and straighten it out, right? Tell me to go ahead. It's annoying, but I will.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll do it. All right. So the summary then is in our open space donation expense account, we have around 300 bucks then. And in the rider, we have around 5,600. We're just going to move those numbers around some. As far as the Hubbardston Preservation Trust, this is interesting. I discovered we get interest on that one. Is it because it's a trust? I don't know, but we do. Because in the ledger history, this is now account 8508-0005780. That's the new Hay account. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? The combined. In the ledger history, updated 10/31/20, the previous balance says 11,986.63. Okay, that was when Ryan and Kelly combined. Okay, makes sense. Then when I checked it, the most recent one, it was 12,198.23. And I thought, wait a minute, that's not enough for a Hay deposit. I wonder what that is. So I contacted Kelly and come to find out that's the fiscal year 2021. It's the first quarter interest. So that explains the larger amount. When we have our pending transaction of 1,600 from that account for the Fieldstone Farm appraisal, it'll bring the balance back down to 10,006. But that is in the works because as I think I sent this out, that Sanda Parks and Rec approved that on 11/5/2020 at their meeting. So once that 1,600 for the appraisal is approved, summary is we have 300 in the open space donations. We have 5,600 in the rider, and we have 10,600 in the trust account. But if we get 200 bucks every quarter, I'd like to get some money in that account. That would be nice. I mean, that's a lot. So good for us. Okay. Any questions?
What's going on with Hay money?
And Hay money will be later in the discussion. Is that correct, everybody? Didn't we have
Yes.
that? So should we just wait for that? Because I have not heard back from Ryan. I did send out the email at the end of last week.
Yep.
That he had talked with Blaine, but we'll talk about it later. But I did not hear from Ryan today, so.
All
So
right.
we're not poor, but we're not rich.
Any other comments or questions on the?
Story of my life.
You're not alone. Any questions or comments on that report, Susan? That's a nice job.
Well, there's a lot, this is simple compared to CPA. CPA is much more of a challenge, but, and the key is to keep up with it every month so that we're apprised of what's going on. So, and I do
Absolutely.
appreciate Sandra getting that meeting done and getting that approved. So hopefully that check is out to Cynthia in a timely manner for the appraisal.
Yep. All right, so we'll accept the treasurer's report, barring any exceptions to that. Let's see, moving on to old business, Fieldstone Farm update. Couple points. The donor that I'm aware of through, what's his name? Mark knows his name. Ralph Baker. The donor that I've become aware of through Ralph Baker, I've engaged her. She is actively working on communicating with her circle of friends to gather donations there. There are two parcels that are on her plate. North County is also trying to acquire a 200-acre parcel on, I believe, the southwest face of Mount Watatic. And so North County is aware of this particular donor as well. And so the donor is interested in both pieces. So we'll just see how that plays out. But she's a good person, and I'm sure she's going to come up with something. Relative to any other updates from Cynthia, I've contacted her. Sean is getting, this is a quote that I just copied and pasted from an email from Cynthia. Sean is getting the title and environmental site assessments done. The note is it will take longer to do the title than expected. No clarification on why. So we extended the purchase date to January 21st to allow enough time for Sean to do the title assessment. And Cynthia is also starting to send off info relative to getting private donations and grants for businesses and people, donors that she is aware of. So, so that's just a little update on that. If there's no questions on that, I'll move forward. Old business, Mount Jeff, that's kind of old business, new business, because we're going to do something up there tomorrow. But per emails that I have sent out, Robert Height will be up there tomorrow at approximately 7:30. And then I know per emails that if we want to talk a little bit about what's going to happen up there, or just who's going to be there to help, et cetera, that this would be an opportune time to do it prior to do it as versus trying to get together after the work is done. So anybody got comments or questions on what's happening tomorrow at Mount Jeff?
Go ahead.
So if we show up tomorrow, are we going to be getting the stuff that's real close to the foundation that he can't get to easily with his machine, or are we saving that for another day?
Here's the scenario based on talking with Robert about how things will go. He is also bringing one extra ground person, if you would, versus a machine person. And just looking at the scenario up there, there's on the street side, there's a couple big trees that are probably that are outside the foundation that are probably a little bit outside the range of his piece of equipment. And so the smaller stuff, or the majority of the smaller stuff, is towards the outside. So I would envision that he's going to go through and take what he can around the outside of the perimeter of the foundation. Excuse me. And then once he does that, swing around to the backside, and then work on that. There's most of that is on the smaller side. So it'll be my take on how this is going to transpire is it'll be a little bit of an iterative process where he goes in and eats whatever he can eat up with a machine, leaves some bigger stuff that might need to get taken down with a chainsaw, and then go back, because that would expose more smaller stuff that he can access. And so bounce back and forth, but that's no big deal given it's a very short distance all the way around the foundation for him to move that machine around. And then also he can, if sort of handwork is needed, he can move to the areas around the big beech tree. So it'll be a little bit of a work in progress, and some of it will be, we'll figure out the best course of action as we proceed through the project. And if all
So what about all the stuff inside the foundation? Can we cut that small stuff and throw it in the path of the machine?
Yeah. Here's my take on that, Mark, and we can confirm that with Robert when he's up there. If there's some, and I think there were a couple of them that were 6 or 7 inch diameter trees in that range that probably want to get taken down with a chainsaw. We can ask him if he's going to chew up the trunk of those once those are down, but definitely if it's limbed and he just we make a pile of that stuff, he could chew that stuff up. Or I've left my tractor up there with the root rock bucket on it. So if we want to just pick up some pieces of that and dump it way off over the edge, if down the far side of Gates Hill, if you will, the lower side of Gates Hill, we could do that. So we can have him chew up what we want. He could probably even chew up the 6 or 7 inch tree that's relatively in a green state, that's relatively soft stuff. He could chew that stuff up too, but we can just confirm that with him when we're there. That sort of answer the question? Maybe not. I probably rambled.
I guess kind of, but we also, I mean.
Oh, inside the foundation, I got the big tractor up there with the backhoe, and so as the foundation wall is exposed, we down on that lower side, there's potentially a pathway in there that I could get in with a big tractor. So if we take down some bigger stuff, I can use the backhoe to get that stuff out of there, and then put it into a location where he can chew it up. So
we should show up with chainsaws and whatnot tomorrow.
yeah, definitely a couple chainsaws will be in order. Absolutely the stuff in the foundation. I'm not so sure that he's, if there's a good pathway. I don't know, maybe Mark's got a thought on that. Do you think there's a pathway for him to actually do work inside the foundation?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But that being said, though, that's why having the tractor and the backhoe with a thumb, I can grab some pretty substantial pieces, as you know, and get those out to a location where he could chew those up.
No, I remember hearing or seeing something along the way that he wants a certain amount of clearance between his operating machine and people working on the ground, right?
Yes. And so that's where if he works out front to a certain extent to expose things, or we could, as long as we're probably 100 feet away, I think that'd be okay with him. Steph and I have actually seen his machine in operation. It throws stuff back at the machine. That's the way that head works. In fact, in talking with him, he has just done some work recently in a public area, and there were people walking up to his machine while he was operating that were within 20 or 30 feet of the machine. Now, Steph and I have seen this machine, and you've seen videos of it. Why anybody would get within 20 or 30 feet of that doesn't make much sense to me. And he stopped and tried to get them out of there, but they, I don't know what was in their head, but they sort of were continuing on their path and didn't get too far from his machine. And he knows which direction debris is thrown. So I'm sure he did not endanger them, but he would prefer people to be typically probably 100 feet away from the machine. So.
Well, I guess we can work that out tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I'm gonna plan to bring a chainsaw and my brush cutter.
Yep.
I'll do the same.
Yeah, and then the tractor's already there. I had it over at Alicia Smith's on Flag Road. So yesterday we finished up whatever we were doing at Alicia Smith's and left it up at Mount Jeff yesterday. So So we should be in pretty good shape for doing a whole lot of work up there.
3 comments. Could it be somebody's mission to do strategic pictures so we have a before and after? You know, that wouldn't take that much, but at least shots from the various perspectives, and then we,
Tape the camera. Yep.
I mean, you know, you're
Yeah.
okay. And then just in case we wouldn't meet again and he gets the invoice to you, could we, Todd already moved that we had between 2,000 and 2,300 set aside for this. Does that sound like in the neighborhood? Do you
Well,
think?
part of that was for fencing.
It'll be,
great.
yes, it'll be less than that because we wanted to allow some for fencing, and I know Mark said that there's already some split rail fencing. So we'll see what the fence project looks like when that gets cleared out up there. I'll bring up this one point though, and it's, I guess, my delinquency. We don't want, maybe we have a whole bunch of caution tape. We don't want the public walking in and around there. The people that are working there know what this machine is like. This group right here, they know what this machine is like, and can orient themselves so they're not in quote unquote the line of fire. But the people walking or hiking won't know about that. So we'll bring up the caution tape, and maybe with a combination of how we arrange vehicles and can maybe somehow block that off to make it safe. I wouldn't anticipate much of activity up there tomorrow anyway, but.
Well, it's been pretty steady. People are out there.
Great.
Yeah, and they're off this week.
Yeah,
There's no
we
school this
when I
week.
dropped the tractor off, actually, Mark, now that you mentioned that, I think there were 2 cars there when I dropped the tractor off
Yeah.
a couple of days ago. So
Yeah, when Bob was on the phone with Robert Hike, the guy that's doing the work, he asked if we could close down the trails because he said he's had that issue at other places where
Yeah.
people are
Yeah,
hiking.
we should close the signed entrance to Gates Hill and behind the chimney. And if people want to hike, just direct them down the field to the other entrance down there.
Okay, that's a good
Alright.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
you got a thought on how to do that, Mark? Caution tape or just
Uh,
people?
Caution
Where to-
tape, or tractor there, or whatever. You know.
All right. Well, we'll bring the tape up, and we can also do it. I mean, there'll be enough bodies up there. Steph and I will be up there, Mark. So we'll have 4 or 5 bodies up there. And if somebody arrives, we can probably personally direct them. And there might be 3 or 4 vehicles. My guess at most that we might have to point in the direction where they can safely walk to get into the trails. Any other questions or comments? So the weather looks better. I mean, obviously we got our rain out last week. When I was looking at the weather, it was actually a little worse than what it looks like it will be tomorrow. It'll be cool, but that's fine. People will be working, and it doesn't look like there'll be much of any moisture tomorrow. We had plenty of that today.
Speaking of rain, I'll just throw in a quick aside. Down on the No Name Trail where you did the work on the where you placed the rock on the old rock culvert.
Yeah.
We actually and dug out on the upstream side.
Yeah.
We actually did get some flow going through the stone
culvert.
culvert after the rain.
All right. We got down low enough so that it cleaned itself out a little bit, maybe, or something. So
A little bit. It won't handle a flood, but it'll pass normal rain events.
good.
Right.
Good. All right. Any other questions on our team activity tomorrow?
When does it start?
7:30.
7:30.
88.
Well, it'll start when you get there. Some of us will be there before others.
All right.
7:30 is not to put my personal preferences in, but 7:30 is not my personal preference, but we'll be there.
Uh-huh.
All right. All right, let's see. I think that's it for older topics. Any other, unless anybody's got any other comments on the old business? And if not, I'll move to new business. Let's talk about the hay contract first. I have been, I'll put a couple dibs in first. I have been in conversation with Lance a couple times, some on a personal note, try to see if he's got any hay to buy, of which hay is, for those that Rick and Susan are probably aware of it, hay is a rare commodity this year. There's hardly anybody in Massachusetts total that has hay to buy.
Wow.
And it's all attributed to it's the drier part of the year. Here's a funny story, maybe. We get hay from Ray Sawyer right straight off the field by wagon load, and we get it at a pretty good rate because of that, because we go over and drive a tractor and pull a hay wagon over and load it into our barn, so he doesn't have to touch it. He cuts it, and the baler throws it into the wagon, and from there we just take it. He came by about 3 weeks ago and wanted to buy it back. He could sell it for $3-4 more than what he sold it to us for. And so I said, sorry, Ray, that ain't happening.
So Bob, if it helps, Steve Prouty has bought some hay from New York to keep his customers supplied. And he's been buying it by truckload. So there is hay available from upstate New York.
Who's his son?
Dana?
I talked to Dana. He said he's got none, but that may have been before he got stuff from New York. I just talked to him 2 days ago.
Yeah, he doesn't have any for any of the new customers, but he could probably give you the name of somebody in New York you could go to.
Oh, okay. I did find somebody in Deerfield that had the big square bales, 800-pound bales.
Oh,
So I'm gonna get some from him. But he's
Okay.
the only person that's.
Well, let me inject a comment here then. If hay is in such high demand, I find it a little hard to understand that Lance chose not to do his first cuttings until the end of August.
Yeah, that's probably a good question, and I didn't ask Lance that question. I did talk to him, and he did make some comments. But so when did he do his cutting?
He did the small field up at the right at Mount Jeff, and the one across the street in late July. But the main fields didn't get done until right at the end of August. And the way the hay license is written is that you shall do 2 cuttings per year. You don't get 2 cuttings if you do your first cutting at the end of August.
Yeah, well, particularly in a year like this, that's for sure, because that's when the dry season started, or the dry.
Perfect during June. The haying was perfect. I saw lots of people out haying in June, and he did nothing in June.
Yep. Let's see. How do we want to proceed with this discussion? I have talked to him, and I did get him relative to a check to Susan. He's got 2 checks coming for, or a check. I don't know if it covers both his first and second cut, because maybe of what you just said, Mark. He only got a second cut off a very small percentage of the fields.
Yeah, and he didn't get much because it was the amount that grew between on those 2 fields right at Mount Jeff. he did get a second cutting there because he did them a little earlier. But his second cutting was probably next to nothing because there hadn't been a whole lot of growth. We
Yeah.
ended by
He commented, those were almost his exact words. He didn't get much off his second cutting, so he off the fields that looked a little bit promising, so he didn't even try second cutting on other fields. So
yeah, no, not when you do your first cutting at the end of August.
and he's got no restriction on those other fields, right?
No.
So how do we want to proceed with this? Do you want to sort of?
I don't, in terms of, I mean, it doesn't excite me, but it's not all about revenue. I mean, if he was doing, if he was providing other in-kind services, keeping the fields clear or helping us out or whatever, then I wouldn't be all that wound up about maximizing revenue from hay cuttings. But he's not doing that either.
Nor is he paying us for the ones he's cut.
He is doing that. Only, I mean, Susan prompted something, but I talked to him when I was just looking for hay, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and he was already in the process of working on that. I gave him some of the new maps. He had lost a map or whatever that was in the hay contract relative to field numbering and acreage, et cetera. And I talked to him on the phone just a day or two ago, and clarified field numbering per what's in the hay contract, as well as acreage. And then I dropped a couple of the maps off, that Mark did. So he's got that stuff. And he probably has submitted the checks to Ryan or whomever gets them in the town.
Not that we've heard yet.
Well, I sent around that Ryan sent me a response, and Lance said he was going to drop the check off on the weekend into the Dropbox, and Ryan said he would apprise us, but I've not heard anything. Is anyone else? And I have had no.
I dropped the maps off yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was working on the checks. How do I want to phrase this?
No, just say it.
No. I just want to. I don't want to do it in the wrong fashion.
Yeah.
Lance is a good guy. But just as far as sometimes his timeliness of doing things and working things out isn't as good as it could be. So the point of that is he's not trying to do anything, but at the same time his performance could be better. Some of it, just from talking with him, is a little bit of aftermath of his father passing, and I know that's quite a while ago, but as ramifications of that, and along the lines of what Mark had commented on about doing other things like brush hog work along the edges of the field and things like that. Lance actually brought that up. I didn't bring it up. He brought it up, that his brother had sort of claimed dibs on the brush hog, but Lance had recently, quote unquote, reacquired the brush hog. So that's now back in his custody. And he did comment that he was going to get back doing that stuff. Now, that being said, the track record isn't that great. So,
I mean, we have limited leverage here. I mean, it wasn't like people were pounding down the door trying to bid up a contract, let it out.
That's for sure. That he was the only bidder, I think.
Well, so how do we help him?
But I think it merits to the point sidebar conversation with him, Bob. And since you've been dealing with him, you can just have the conversation and try and sound him out on, how much interest do you have in being in the hay business? Because if he's not that interested and doesn't want to do a first cutting, or doesn't want to do 2 cuttings per year, then maybe we can start putting some feelers out and see if there's any. Basically, we have the ability to void this contract at any point for performance, but we don't have anybody in our pocket to take it over either.
Yeah. Like I've talked to Rick Green, who's was obviously maybe a potential candidate for that, and he didn't seem to be too interested. But at this point, through dribs and drabs, I've talked to Lance now, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 times. I can have an easy conversation with him. He's an interesting guy to talk to, because at first it's like, are you going to say anything, Lance? And then once he starts talking in his farmer type talk, he doesn't stop talking. So, and so I'm really comfortable talking with him, and I can bring these things up because he sort of brought them up. He's acknowledged that he hasn't done anything with his brush hog work because his brother took it from him. So, but so I can talk to him, and the point relative to, how come you didn't cut the first cut earlier when it was ideal for cutting? That'd be a good point. And I, at this point, I feel very comfortable bringing that up with him. So, all right, I'll get some more update from Lance.
But what's the point of having some deadlines in the contract if we don't maybe help him, like a reminder? Oh, by August 1st, you're supposed to have that first cutting in.
Yeah.
I mean, and then October 1 is.
Well, that's a good way to bring it up, Susan. Like I can say, and if he does have any comments relative to some of the stuff in the contract, I know we put in there some things relative to, if the weather doesn't facilitate, per discussion that we've had, a good second cut, which it did not this year. That's one of the major reasons why there's going to be such a hay shortage, and why Steph and I have been looking, because if you start looking for hay next March and April, when stuff in their barns runs out, you're not going to find any. So.
But that makes the first cutting all that much more important, because you'd never know what the season brings. So
I'll to end this, because I think we've covered some good points. I'll talk to Mark about. Hey, Mark. I'll talk to Lance about the why he didn't get an earlier cutting in when it was really ideal on that first cut. Because that's a complaint I've had relative to Ray Sawyer. See, I've talked to Ray a whole bunch of times. How come you're not out there cutting? And that was when he was in the wood business, and because he was too busy with his wood business to cut his first cut when he should have cut it. And then you miss your opportunity, and then pretty soon it's August because you get rain every other day. All right, I'll follow up.
Just before we leave it, Bob, if you don't mind, how about also bringing his attention to the attachment D, because it does specify each of the parcels and what comes from there. So you can look at that and see what's working and what isn't. I know it sounds, we must have that in there for a reason, right? So, does anybody else feel strongly? Nobody else is a rule keeper. Okay. I don't know.
Right,
It'd be helpful for all of us, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I'll get that contract and just go over it with them.
Yeah.
But
No.
well, what's attachment D? Is that the form?
You have, it's where you have the field number, the field acres, the acres cut, date cut, fee per acre. And then
the form.
you hand that in with the August payment and then the October. And it just, we know more what's going on, and maybe he's never even seen that. I don't know. I mean,
Well, that's a possibility.
he signed it at the end, but I mean,
Lance is a farmer. I don't even think he's got a computer. I don't know he's much more at home behind a truck or a tractor. So,
and that's not a bad thing. It's just,
no, and like, as I said, I think we can work things out with Lance, and I think he's got every intention of doing a good job up there, but every intention doesn't necessarily end up in a good job. You get intentions and actuality can be two different things. So,
okie dokie. Well,
all right.
well, at least we have the account straightened out. What? Mark?
Is there-
And you will be seeing. You will be seeing. When I talked to Lance, he wanted those maps and acreages, et cetera, to appropriately cut his checks. So, so you will. So that'll be more money coming into the account very shortly.
Is our fee based on acreage or on yields?
Acreage,
Acreage.
Well, then
$47, right?
then
Acreage with a qualification of, if for whatever reason you're not able to cut, like this year, like second cut all over the place, but he could have got more second cut per Mark's comment, but second cut for all hay farmers in Massachusetts was minimal. So if you can't cut, then you don't have to pay for acreage where you are not able to sustain anything off of it.
Well, it says no.
But was our revenue affected by him only cutting once?
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
$47 an acre.
per Mark's comment, yeah.
Okay,
So that would be 3,478 at best,
I see.
right? No, that's two cuttings.
That's two cuttings, which would be at best.
But so if he only did it once, it's only around 17. That's what it would look like. I was guessing.
Well, to Mark's earlier point, there was plenty of time to do a first cutting on all those fields. And if he had cut them earlier, he might have got a better second cutting.
Yeah, we can continue to go around and around. I can get the gist, and I can get the point across to Lance, and we'll just see what he says.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna have any problem if he does not make any second cut payment this year, because I don't think he got anything out of the second cut.
I think we'll get a little bit, because he did get something off the particularly that lower field, the field that's normally really wet.
Yeah,
the benefit of that, he did get a little bit, but he got
some.
he got
But
some.
the main question is, what are your plans for the future?
Yeah,
You want to be in a hay business or not?
right. And so that's the main gist of the conversation. All right, let's move on. Let's see. Let's go to Mark's grant application, which, by the way, Mark, that was a nice job. I like that a lot. So, questions, comments, etc. Mark, you want to open that?
Yeah, I mean, it's there. I did get a very preliminary feedback from Denise Morrissey at what you said, saying that she loved the idea, that she was going to look at it in more detail next week. I'm assuming this is going to pass through Tim at Dunn Park, and Denise and Dwayne, who is the district manager. I'm quite confident they're all in favor, and so that will start getting routed around to pick up all these other DCR signatures from ecology and historical, cultural, and it'll go to Joelle for forestry. As part
Why
of
did it? Why
this
did
is
it
all
need
part,
a-
this is all part of the DCR trail proposal, which normally
The,
would.
I filled one of those out last year. And I don't want to get into much detail on that for North Quabbin, and that was a little bit of a horror show, but that's okay.
Yeah,
and it didn't
right
go
now,
But I didn't have to deal with DCR. I just filled it out. Why do we need DCR in this?
we were always going to need district approval, which I thought I had in my pocket. But then I
Okay,
found out
because what we want to do is on their land.
state forest. Yeah,
Okay,
most of it. I mean, we've got one sign proposed down on at the bottom of behind the chimney at the intersection with Canesto Brook, and we've got two signs proposed over at Malone. But all the rest are at various points around the state forest.
okay,
So this is, the proposal is for this to be a joint venture between DCR and us.
okay.
DCR is going to provide some labor. We're going to provide some labor. We're going to provide some minimal materials costs. But anyway, the grant application is one piece, and I already had that done. But at the last minute, I found out that in order for them to evaluate a grant application on DCR property, you have to have the DCR trail proposal done, which is normally a form that you would fill out if you're going to reroute a trail or if you want to create a new trail.
Oh,
But in this case, we're just proposing signs, but they say you got to do that form,
okay.
which means that it has to go all the way around everybody and their brother.
Kind of like my RMV story.
Yeah, exactly. So, that I'll get more feedback in the next week or two, but I presume that's going to start making the rounds during December and January. And then we'll still be able to apply for the grant before February 1st.
Yep. Okay.
Is that the date, Mark, February 1st?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mid-
And I think I found out early enough in the game that I think we've got a reasonable chance at getting all these signatures in time. And I think it's gonna. I think the grant application's gonna have a pretty good chance of success. I'm a known quantity to several of the advisory board members. I mean, we're not best buds, but they've seen my work before at Leominster State Forest on trail maps and signs, and
It makes a big difference.
Hmm?
Reputation makes a big difference.
yes. I won't go into that further.
No, I won't either.
Oh, dear.
All right, and I think this would be a really nice addition to our trails too, considering they're getting quite a bit more
Yeah,
usage.
we have riders here that use those trails, have been using them for a number of years and still get lost. So what you're doing is, really help a lot of people.
Any other questions, comments on that? Good. No, that's a great thing, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Let's see, we got that and that. Now, we've had this thing that's lingering on here that's just sort of protocols on how us, the Open Space Committee, can maybe better communicate, or any comments, guidelines on, side topics. And the Fieldstone is a perfect example. the, we do and will hopefully in the future have projects like Fieldstone that we want to engage in, but you can't have more than, or you need to have less than half the committee on it so that it's not a full meeting, so we don't violate open space laws. The what thoughts on how we communicate amongst ourselves? What's legal as it relates to open space activities, etc. I don't know. Anybody got thoughts on how we can do a little better at communicating? If I'll lead into that a little bit more. Fieldstone is a classic example, but again, it's hopefully something that we have the same kind of issue at. We hopefully get other projects like that. The how can we communicate without violating open space things? Should we just send out what happens, and is that okay to send it out to the entire committee in between our formal meetings? I don't know, Mark, you probably got the best insights on that.
I think if it's strictly information distribution, not soliciting opinions or decisions or anything like that, if it's a push of information out to the rest of the committee, I think that's fine at any point. Where you tend to get into trouble with open meeting law is if there's an ongoing discussion via email on something that the board has to render a decision on.
Yeah, we're kind of asking for a group opinion via email, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's problematic.
Yeah. So if we do have like a little subgroup like we have had on Fieldstone, if they just send out the thing, okay, I'll take up a specific example. The group that was pursuing that had a meeting with Sean and Cynthia, etc., to take the assessor, the East Quabbin hired a legal assessor, and so the group that led that, that went on that walk with that assessor was myself, Cynthia, Sean, one or two other, but just give a report on that there was a walk that had the assessment done on it, etc. So per Mark's comment is what we could do better, if I'm reading this correctly, is just to report on the factual activities that they happen as they happen, just to keep people abreast of events associated with a particular activity like Fieldstone as they happen. And then in the event that anything of consequence is required, like, I'll bring up a potential sore spot, like any kind of informal agreement with East Quabbin relative to will help contribute towards paying for the assessment, etc. That's where it gets a little bit sticky, I think.
That definitely gets sticky, making representations or
making I'll phrase it, making a commitment for the committee without bringing it before the committee. So and I don't think we intend, I won't make excuses or something, but we're a little bit, haven't done this very often. I'll say we did comment to Cynthia that we thought we could bear our fair share, which I think the committee would approve to, but we should not have done that without bringing it before the committee ahead of time. Something like that. So I think as long as we just provide factual information, and if anything comes up, like paying for a portion of doing anything, whether it's paying for something or any other type of commitment on our behalf, that we need to engage the entire committee somehow, whether it's a special meeting or at our regular meeting. That sound right?
Sounds right to me. You have any thoughts, Todd?
It sounds about right to me too.
Any other comments on that?
Just in the case of that incident, Bob, there was a need at the time to let Cynthia know whether or not we were going to support, and I think that would have been the case for just calling a special meeting just for that one.
Yeah.
It was time sensitive is what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
For the project, I think.
Yeah, no, there was, but then in that
Not
case,
excusing it.
then we just need to get the whole committee involved and call a special meeting, which isn't that big a deal. So
That would be the way to, well, and case in point for
Or,
that.
or wouldn't be if it didn't have to be Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like they're always a big deal.
be quiet. I'm going to get a needle for your first shot. Yeah.
Just for the record, we did say at the time,
I won't put it in at minus 82 below zero.
we did say at that time, when we were talking to Cynthia about it, that we would need to bring it before a formal meeting of the committee to get a vote on it before we proceeded with anything.
Yeah.
So that was made clear to her, and she understood that. I mean, she deals with this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
but
like
at the
we didn't
same
tell her.
time, there was at the same time though, per Mark's perspective, there was a significant level, and maybe appropriately so, of confidence that we had that we could support that effort. So, all right. So I think we've got the general idea on that. If there's no other conversation on that, I'm going to go past that. Any other comments on that? I'll bring up one other side note that's not on the agenda. And it's just a FYI. I forwarded around, and I don't know if everyone got it. Ryan's survey. A lot of information in that. But it's an open survey, and he was looking for inputs to his survey. So did everybody get that and have an opportunity to contribute to that and send that back to him?
I got it. I haven't sent anything back yet.
For my own personal, our own, at the farm here, and it's got nothing to do with open space, but just an example of what could go on there. There could be things open space related that he's capturing a lot. He's asked for people's just general interest in the town, what they like about the town, et cetera, which just reflecting back on the open space survey that we did, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. There's things in there like that, but from our own perspective on the farm here, the traffic speeds in town, just on Route Road, which is a rural dirt road, they're not very good. On Williamsville Road, there's cars going 50, 55 miles an hour on Williamsville Road. So I'm going to respond back with just something relative to traffic speeds in town. But if we have other inputs and maybe that are more related to open space aspects, they can go on there too. So, and barring any other comments on that, anybody else got anything else under new business?
Just thinking ahead, here we are at the end of November. The December meeting would be like Christmas week, which probably isn't great. And just saying. And then for the CPA meeting, CPC meeting, technically it says January 15 or the middle of the month, because Sandra did defer that request until then. So chances are we may not meet again as a group until that, after that meeting. But Steph,
Well, we could meet. We could meet because it's almost 4 weeks away. We could meet the week of 16, 17, 18, and 19 because this is
November.
is that November? Be quiet, Steph. Yeah. That's December, but we're back a week before that, right? This is only the 23rd.
That's
How about-
Christmas week.
How about after Christmas, before New Year's?
Yeah,
Like the 28th?
something like that, or is that crazy? What do you think, people?
Well,
28th
28th.
Well-
and 9th is okay with me.
probably still going to be this whole COVID thing going on. So I'm going to imagine people aren't traveling too much.
Yeah, I don't have any travel plans, so.
So should we aim for the 29th, Pete? Is that okay, or does anybody see that as?
29th is good with us.
That would give us a chance just to touch base and stuff. Then we also need a couple more members for CPA, because what's her name?
Yeah.
Fox. And she was a very good secretary. No, I don't know who's going to do that job. You want it, Steph?
Steph loves it.
Sorry, Steph left the room.
Anyway, but if somebody else knows, I mean, you know, it's just. Anyway. Okay, so we're thinking the 29th, or did we, right? The
Yes.
Tuesday?
Yep, that sounds good.
All right.
All right. Any other questions, comments, etc.? No, hearing none. I'll just
Move to adjourn.
see several of you next week. Move to adjourn. Second.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. That's right, not next week. Tomorrow. Second. We have a motion to adjourn. Second.
A second.
We got a couple seconds. That's a toss up between Todd and Steph. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye.